What's going on, everyone? So there is a lot of questions about Tabitha and her being chosen. We found out in the latest episode that she is one of the chosen ones, that Victor's mother, Henry's wife, Miranda, was also a chosen one, and all of the chosen ones had failed except for Tabitha. But she hasn't really fully succeeded, right? Like the big question that was posed before it cut off, and I'm sure we'll get relayed that information in the upcoming episode. Depending on when you watch this video, we might already have that information, but is, well, if you got out, or how did you get out, right? If you didn't save children, how did you get out, right? Like, why are you here when everyone else failed and you clearly didn't save the children, the children, right? Like, what's going on? What's the deal? Right? So there is still a lot to unpack and a lot to unfold with Tabitha. Now, Tabitha was clearly guided to Henry's house, right? Whether it was directly through Victor or just, the boy in white kind of leading the path and pushing her out the window in order to get her, and then shows up and appears in the real world and kind of walks her to the path. Doesn't really take her to Henry, but kind of leads her down the direction she needed to go, and kind of the after effects, right? Going to the church and speaking to priests and all that, right? To ultimately finding Henry. There clearly was a sequence of events that led to that. But the question is, why is Tabitha chosen? What is the connection? What is the correlation there? Now, I've talked about her and the similarities to Miranda, right? Both female, both are mothers, both have 2 children, a son and a daughter, right? I threw out the potential idea in a previous video. Check out that video after this video of what if the boy in white is actually Miranda's son, right? Tabitha actually lost a son, as we know, in Thomas. You see at the end of episode 2, Jim gets a phone call from what said is Thomas. Is it Thomas? Probably not. I think that's a safe bet, but we'll see. See how things develop. Like I always say with From, you can't rule anything out, because this is full of surprises. There's so many different directions they could go. But what if another correlation, what if another connection between her and Miranda is that they both lost a child? And maybe that's why the boy in white has that relationship with Tabitha. The boy in white does have a relationship with Victor, right? A lot of possibilities. Again, go check out that video for the full deep dive. But another theory I've seen a lot of people throw out that is kind of interesting, and I want to kind of talk about the reasons why and why not I think that it could be real. And the reason I even want to talk about it is, again, because I don't think we can rule anything out. But a lot of people seem to believe that Tabitha is actually Eloise, who is Miranda and Henry's daughter and Victor's sister. Now, we have no idea what happened to Eloise. Victor relayed that he found his mother's body, but we have no information or details as to what happened with Eloise. Did she get out? Is that what happened? It's a possibility. Now, the idea that it's Eloise, that Tabitha is Eloise, one of the biggest things that I've seen people point out as to why not is that Tabitha is Hispanic and Eloise doesn't appear to be. Now, that doesn't mean that she's not. We don't know, right? Victor doesn't appear to be Hispanic in any way. But, Miranda, right? At least in the image we saw of her, the scene we saw with her, but it wasn't a great scene. It wasn't like you got like full details, kind of dark, right? Like, could that be something? Sure. I get that that's kind of an easy, inherent way to kind of look at it, but chances are she was adopted, right? And you hear her talk to what she relays to as her mother. Is it her adopted mother, right? And, if you, as a child, grow up in a Hispanic household, you're probably going to have the accent, you're probably going to speak the language, right? all those things you would imagine. Also, Eloise, we saw Henry completely block out that he even had a sister, right? Completely blocked it out. Is it possible that Eloise did the same thing? Or what if she escaped and ended up just kind of not knowing what happened, right? Or what if she did for a long time and just no one believed her? It's always a possibility, right? Now, you would imagine that she would go to her father, right? Henry. And that's kind of my first, if she was discovered, they'd probably try to find her. But you got to think, this would have been 30, 40 years ago, somewhere in that ballpark. How easy is it to find somebody compared to now, where you could just, do a DNA test and boom, right? There you go. And it's just so much more advanced than those times, right? Also, if Eloise didn't really have, what if she couldn't remember her name, or, she didn't know where she lived, she didn't know who her father was, what if she had a form of amnesia and didn't really know one way or another, right? At some point, you didn't have the internet back then, you didn't have ways to kind of connect and, make contact with people the way that you do now. It's also possible Henry just thought she was dead, right? And she goes into the system, somebody adopts her, and grows up to be Tabitha. Also, Tabitha had this immediate connection and almost, care for Victor, right? Her and Victor seem to have this connection. Now, again, we're talking about the reasons why and why not. The easy answer as to why she had that connection, outside of obviously potentially being the sister, is, Victor is very childlike, right? She even relays that in episode 1 of season 3, where, she talks about he's still such a kid, couldn't imagine growing up in a place like that. And, she very likely felt, sensed, and saw the innocence in Victor. Also, Victor really kind of developed this bond with Ethan and this sort of friendship with Ethan. And I'm sure Tabitha saw that as well and, kind of sees that. And also, again, she lost her son Thomas. So, she's in a kind of vulnerable state, right? Probably a little more open and accepting to a childlike person, kind of understands the situation. I think that is an easy kind of explanation for that. But it could just be that they're related and they just have that kind of natural connection through being siblings, right? What if Eloise was an adopted sibling or a half sibling or something like that? It's very possible that, maybe Miranda had Eloise elsewhere, with another man. I mean, there's so many different explanations that you could come up to if you wanted to make that connection. If I'm being honest, I think it's incredibly unlikely. I don't think that that's the direction that they're going to go with that. But Eloise had to have ended up somewhere. She's still alive. She's still in Fromville somewhere. Like I always say, you cannot rule anything out in From. Right? Until we get the details one way or another, can't rule it out. This show is always constantly throwing you through loops, and you think this is going to happen, and then oh no, this happens, right? So it wouldn't shock me, it wouldn't surprise me, but also you have Tabitha being directed to Henry. Now, in the Boy in White episode or video where I talk about how what if it's Victor's brother, I suggest that it would make sense because also the Boy in White is clearly leading Tabitha to Henry, and it would make sense that he would lead Tabitha to his father and his mother, who would have some of the details of the paintings and the art and all that stuff. He would have that familiarity and know where she needs to go, right? Say the same thing about if Tabitha is Victor's sister, if it's Eloise. I mean, it could even be both, right? Boy in White could be the brother and Eloise could be Tabitha. And it's very possible that even if that's not the case, let's say the boy in white is just, somebody trying to help, a being, whatever, trying to help. It's very possible that, hey, I need Tabitha to discover and find out the truth and actually get the information, right? And, maybe Tabitha ends up going to Henry through the boy in white and discovers something that reveals that she is actually Eloise, right? Maybe Henry relays, like, I don't ever know what happened to Eloise, right? Like, got to imagine. So the conversation has been very Victor heavy. Got to imagine at some point, besides talking about Victor, they're going to talk about the daughter, right? They're going to talk about Eloise because he had a daughter too, right? There's got to be that connection. I mean, talking about Victor up until this point makes sense, right? Because, again, she had the lunchbox and stuff. But you got to imagine at some point there's going to be that dialogue and that conversation about Eloise. What if he relays, like, Eloise, got put into foster care and I lost track of her, or I was trying to get her back or whatever. He also said that they thought he did it. That they thought he killed the mother and Victor. If that's the case, it's possible that they wouldn't even let him get Eloise back. So what if Henry knew that Eloise was out and was free and is out there somewhere, but he was never able to get her because everyone thought he was the one that did it. And they just couldn't prove it, but they kind of kept him from getting his daughter. There's a lot of ways that you kind of spin this one way or another. Again, I think it's very unlikely. I think, the other kind of big, like, probably not, is Victor does appear so much older than Tabitha, but we don't really know how old Victor is, and we don't know how much older he was than his sister. And as far as the age goes with Victor, right? Because a lot of people have talked about how Henry looks younger or the same age as Victor, which in reality, the actors are actually like 20 years apart in the real world, here, our world, not real world and from. But also, imagine how you would age in Fromville compared to the real world. So, if they are similar in age, it would make sense that Tabitha would not look, 20 years older because she grew up in the real world, where Victor grew up in Fromville, right? So even that, I think you have an argument, right? Like the two kind of main points, one that I see a lot of people mention, and then the other one I've seen a few people mention is, again, the age difference, as well as her being Hispanic. But I do think that that's easy to explain either way, right? I think that the Hispanic part and her speaking Spanish and having the accent and stuff like that, I think is very explainable, right? And I think the age difference is, again, very explainable. We don't know the age difference between Victor and Eloise. And, again, you being in Fromville, since you were a child, probably going to age you. Probably going to age you pretty quickly. We also don't really know how time really affects the characters in Fromville, right? Like, Boyd seems a lot farther along on his illness than he would be otherwise, right? They even kind of make that a point. And it would make sense that, Fromville kind of expedites things, kind of ups the process of your aging and stuff. So again, a lot of easy ways to kind of explain the doesn't make sense because of this. But again, if I had to guess, I'd say that's probably not the case. But I do think that this is a fun theory to kind of explore and talk about. And like I said, yeah, I don't think you can rule anything out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that, this is a possibility? You think absolutely not? No way? Are you kind of in the middle? Kind of mixed on it? However you feel. Whatever your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.